Hey Globalites, today there isn't a cute intro because today we are going to explore the recent and horrific past of Cambodia. I'm here at the Choeung killing fields just outside of Phnom Penh. So if you don't know much about Cambodia's past, which I have to admit I didn't know before I came here, and I probably still don't know a ton. In the 1970s, a group called the Khmer Rouge took control of the entire country and basically changed the fate of the country. A leader named Pol Pot and his regime, the Khmer Rouge, marched into Phnom Penh in 1975 and basically within a matter of days were able to evacuate the entire city, basically moving everybody out to the country. They were a communist regime, and they believed that people who dwelled in the cities were regressive people who thrived in a capitalist environment and were not part of an ideal communal society. So he wanted to establish a communist state, basically, of people working hard out in the field, and so he basically redistributed everything. People were moved out to the fields to do hard labor, and they weren't even equipped to be able to do those things. No skills, no training, just go out into the fields with very limited resources, very little food. People were separated from their families. Men were divided up into different camps. Women were divided up into different camps. Children could stay with their mothers if they were young enough, but if they were old enough, they'd be put to work too. And many people died during this time. It's said that 3 million people out of the 8 million people that lived in Cambodia from 1975 to 1979 died. Just a horrific event that happened here. The place that we are at right now is where 20,000 people were said to have been taken to be executed. At a certain point, the idea of this agrarian society was not working, and Pol Pot and his regime were starting to get paranoid. So they brought people here to be executed, anybody who seemed to be a threat to the regime. There was no discrimination in terms of age or gender. Women, children, babies even were brought here to be killed. Just horrible. Basically everyone in Cambodia right now, in some way, shape, or form, whether they lived through it directly or not, has been affected by what happened. The population in Cambodia is so young, and it's because so many people died. So many fathers and mothers and grandparents and children and brothers and sisters. So many people passed away. Coming to the killing fields is pretty straightforward. You hire a tuk-tuk that takes you out here. It's about half an hour to get out here. Then you pay $6 to get in, and you get an audio tour device. And the audio tour is really excellent. It's narrated by a native Cambodian who lived through the Khmer Rouge. And the tour, it takes you all around the facility. In the center of the facility is a memorial stupa, which holds the bones that were found here. There's also a museum that you can go and see photos of some of the victims who came through here, and a short video with some scenes from the takeover of Phnom Penh and the mass evacuations that happened. You have to come here to witness what this place is all about. There's just a heaviness here, and people are very introspective as they walk through to see the grave sites and the places where people were killed. It's just so unfortunate. Imagine your community all of a sudden being split apart and over a quarter of those people just disappearing. This isn't the first genocide that's happened. This is definitely not one that we learn a lot about or something that we even talk about. So when you come here, really take in everything that this place is trying to communicate to you, because it stands for us to learn the lessons that we need to learn to let this not happen again. Okay, now we are making our way to S-21, which was a school that was converted into a prison in Phnom Penh. And many Okay, so we made it to Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. This used to be a high school turned into a prison called S-21 during the Khmer Rouge regime era. This is basically where people thought to be enemies of the state came to be interrogated and imprisoned. You can't really take a ton of photography or film in some of these buildings. I did manage to sneak in a couple things. When Phnom Penh fell to the Khmer Rouge and there was a mass evacuation of the city, this prison remained mostly a mystery because there weren't that many people actually living in Phnom Penh. And so people who were brought here were blindfolded. They had no idea where they were or what they were doing, and they were being tortured and asked questions about things that they had no idea what they had done. It's really eerie to be here because what once was a place where, it looks like a school. There are old chalkboards and the classrooms, they look like dilapidated classrooms, but inside these rooms horrible things happened to mostly innocent people who were brought here because of something that they did or something that they didn't do that indicated them as an enemy of the state. If you were of some kind of foreign ethnicity like Vietnamese or Thai or even European that somehow was in the country, you would be brought here. If you were thought of as an intellectual, if you had a high education, or if you just looked intellectual, if you had glasses, if you seemed to be some kind of intellectual threat to the government, they would bring you here. And not only would they bring adults here, they would bring entire families here to torture and to execute because they didn't want there to be any potential for someone to come back for revenge. So everyone had to come and endure the suffering here. In some of the old classrooms, they built single cells, the walls made of brick and planks of wood, and it's just so eerie walking through the halls and kind of seeing how claustrophobic they were, and you can just imagine how scared people were to be taken here. In order for the state to justify the executions, they would basically force people to write confessions of crimes that they committed against the state through torture. If you can just imagine being tortured to the point where you would just lie just so that you could face the ultimate punishment of death just to get out of that torture. That's how bad it was. And so many people did that here. When you come here, you can get another audio guide. There's also tour guides here that are ready to explain to you in your language what happened here. But quite frankly, like after seeing the killing fields and now coming here, here's a lot more graphic. That's why you can't really film. There's images of people, of dead people. There's images of people and depictions of people being tortured. There's lots of photographs of all these people who must have found their end here. It's just, it's exhausting. I'm exhausted. And I don't know if I can really stomach more of this, honestly, but it's really important that I came to see this. At the center of the Genocide Museum, there's a memorial that beautifully captures why this place exists. It's here so that it can remind us of what can happen when power falls into the hands of someone with a delusional vision of the world, and how that person can manipulate poor and uneducated people to do massive damage to a country that was just struggling to get through a very difficult time to begin with. It's here so that we never forget and so that we can avoid something like this happening to us in the future. So I found my time in both of these places very enlightening and moving, and I hope that you all get a chance to come to Cambodia and see this. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'm not going to end it the way I usually do. I just want you to take a moment to appreciate what you have and make the most of life.